Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. Welcome to Food for Thought. We're in John's Gospel, John chapter 6. We're watching and listening and learning about how Jesus discipled his first disciples. And the fact I believe is true for all of us. He continues to disciple us as we see him, hear him, learn to love him, and then live him. There's the interior part of us, the seeing him and hearing him and chewing on everything that we take in and thinking about everything that he says. And then we begin to perceive that he loves us. Then we begin to love him. And after that, we begin to move about in the world, sharing the life of Jesus with other people. Not just talking about the life of Jesus, but literally sharing his truth and his grace. I hope you're well and already ready to listen to Jesus again. We're going to end chapter 6 today being Friday. It's been a wonderful week to think on these words. The word that came to my mind this morning thinking about what we've listened to in John chapter 6 is amazing. Another word is shocking. And from what we were talking about yesterday, something that we have to truly digest, to think about. You'll understand that as I read this passage beginning in verse 53. Then Jesus said to them, "Most assuredly I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you." Now this is Jesus speaking. He's in the city of Capernaum, a small town, in the synagogue. Okay? "Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is food indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him. As a living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so he feeds on me. So he who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers ate the manna and are dead. He who eats this bread will live forever." Now put yourself in that context. You're looking at a human being in front of you in a small synagogue, and he begins to illustrate the narrative that he is declaring to be true, that he is the very essence of what can keep human life alive and thriving. And he uses this illustration, this metaphor of eating and drinking, who he is and what he is, as being to the key of having this life. These things he said in the synagogue as he taught in Capernaum. Therefore, many of his disciples, when they heard this, said, "This is a hard saying. Who can understand it?" When Jesus knew in himself that his disciples complained about this, he said to them, "Does this offend you? What then if you should see the Son of Man ascend where he was before? It is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh profits nothing." Remember that now. It is the Spirit that gives life. So he says, what I'm illustrating to you is spirit. It is not flesh in the way that you think. You're thinking about this on a human level. The words that I speak to you are spirit. They are life. But there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning who they were who did not believe and who would betray him. And he said, "Therefore I have said to you that no one can come to me unless it has been granted by my Father." From that time, many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. Then Jesus said to the 12, "Do you also want to go away?" But Simon Peter answered him, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. Also, we have come to believe and know that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus answered them, "Did I not choose you, the 12, and one of you is a devil?" He spoke of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, for it was he who would betray him, but being one of the 12. And now, you remember yesterday that I talked about what a world-famous psychologist, has said about mental health and purpose and meaning. He said this: the person who has the best story wins. What he meant by that was we all live within ourselves with a narrative of who we are and what reality is. And we have the right or the ability to choose the narrative that will define our purpose, that will give us meaning, that will make us believe that we are valued and we are loved. And the narrative that we carry within ourselves is the food we eat, and it is the water that we drink. Now, and Jesus expresses this in the way of saying these words are spirit. So we have to ask ourselves, if the words that he's saying about eating his body and drinking his blood are spirit, what does that mean? It means that there is a kind of hunger in the human being, in every human being, for a spiritual, transcendental, divine connection. And it exists inside of everyone. When I was being trained in theology many years ago, they talked about it, this void of God within us that needs to be filled. And Jesus is basically saying to people, you will never be satisfied at the level of your spirit unless you eat of my body. Now he's talking about his body is a manifestation of his perfection and his commitment to us. And we have to eat that history. We use expressions all the time that would make it easy. I need to chew on that for a while. Or I need to meditate on that a while. I really need to think about that. I'm going to chew on that. Every time we put something in our mouth, to eat or even to taste, and every time that we drink something in, we run the risk of chewing on or drinking in that which can do us harm. So we're selective about what we put in our mouth, at least we should be. And we are selective about what we drink to satisfy our thirst, or we should be. And Jesus is saying that the only thing on the menu in the universe for a human being to find true eternal life, meaning, and love is to chew on who he is and drink in who he is. He's obviously not talking about the flesh. He said the flesh profits nothing. The spirit is what he's trying to drive at. So here's the way that I would put this to someone if I was discipling someone. There will come a moment in your discipleship process where Jesus will say to you, you must only eat of my body, my history, not yours. And you will have to come to a place where you only, if you want to find meaning and purpose, and if you want to dwell and abide in my love, then you're going to have to eat and drink everything about me, because everything about me is exactly what the Father has for you and everything the Father expects from you. To be a disciple of Jesus Christ is to take into yourself the living narrative of who Jesus Christ is and what that means to you and what that means to other people who will come in contact with you. So you will have to meditate on Jesus Christ. That's the chewing process of understanding everything about this life that was given for you, everything about this life that has existed for eternity. And you will become a person who feeds on and drinks in the life, the body, and the blood sacrifice of Jesus. And it will produce in you, and it has produced this in me, is a sense of purpose, a sense of acceptance, a sense of meaning, a sense of value. And once I have that established at the level of my spirit, then God can create in me the desires that match that, and the ability to execute that manifestation as fruit into the world. As hard as it is to read these words in John chapter 6, maybe it would be the best way to just stop and kind of look at this is these disciples were sitting there, and he looks at them and he says, will you also go away? I think it's a mistake to think that disciples do not have to come to this question in this place. Will you also go away because my words are hard for you to stomach? You see the way we talk? These words are hard to stomach. I don't know if I can swallow that. You see how the words are used to get you to understand the picture of what's going on? Can you really take the narrative that Jesus is teaching in, chew on it, swallow it, and believe it's the best thing possible for you? Well, the first apostles, 11 of them did, one didn't. And when it came down to the final moment, Judas could not swallow the narrative of Jesus. He did not believe in Jesus. He could not drink from that well of living water. He chose money. He chose to deny him. We should not be shocked that some disciples turn back. We should not be shocked, but we should look into our own self and say, why am I staying? And Peter answered that question. It's because you have the words, the narrative. You have the words of life, the story that wins. You have that. And we are convinced that you are the Messiah, the Holy Son of the living God. Every disciple goes through this process where what they find fairly easy to believe comes to a point where it's very difficult to keep taking it in. But then when you evaluate if there's anything out there that's better to eat and drink, and you finally say, no, I found meaning, I found love, I found purpose, I found Jesus, and I will continue to live eating the body and drinking the blood of the life of Jesus, because that living reality, that living story allows me to overcome the world by the simple thing called faith. When you put something in your mouth to eat it and chew on it, that's faith. It's receptivity. Think on these things. Think on these things. They're extremely important in the discipleship process. I know that if you're listening to this particular video, you're one of those people that is chewing on this for a long time. And I think that most of you, if not all of you, have already decided there's nowhere else to go. This is my story. This is my song. This is my life in Jesus Christ. Have a great weekend. See you again on Monday, Lord willing.